What an intro.
That was fantastic. My goodness.
Hey, thank you for that great intro. So nice of you, Fitz.
Man, that's a pretty good intro. The 7 takes. I like that.
Thanks for having me, guys. That's an intro right there.
Oh, man. That's a hell of an intro.
You're going to learn on this podcast right away. We like to have fun, but we also have to ask you the hard-hitting questions.
Of course.
You guys will see right through the BS as well, so it's got to be real.
I'm curious about your brother because the last time I was at his house was 3 years ago.
Yeah, after the Thursday game,
After the Thursday night game.
Yeah.
You're going to ask about furniture, I think.
I'm going to ask a little bit about furniture and maybe just how much he's grown up in the last 3 years because
it's been staggering, honestly.
He legitimately
I just wanna
had
know if he
a
has living room
basketball
furniture.
hoop in his living room.
Dude, Travis has been...
And a
Give
pool
him
table.
credit.
I don't think he had any couches.
One of the
nothing.
things I love so much about Travis is that he never grew up. Like, he was like Peter Pan, like the Lost
but
Boys.
Is he growing up now, though?
For sure. It's changing. And I think that sometimes, you get people in your life that maybe get that out of you, and that's a good thing.
That are worth changing for.
They incentivize you to get change.
There's no
That's
question.
Right.
Okay, so
Trav,
he's growing up.
he is growing up. He's still, though, got that youthful enthusiasm. I think he'll kind of always have that. It's just part of his personality. And I think it's one of the reasons, like, every teammate has ever loved playing with him. Anybody that's ever met Trav, you can't help but just love the guy. And, he's a free spirit in the best possible way.
Yes, he is.
It's funny you bring up furniture. He bought, I don't know if I should share this.
You
He had these couches, and they were like, it was like green velvet, like over the top couches.
I could see that with him.
And I go and I'm like, dude, I'm not going to say the dollar amount, but I'm like, dude, what are these couches? Oh, it's an Italian designer. They made them.
God.
Let's call him $100,000 a piece.
Yeah.
And he said it's an investment. I'm like, Travis. It's art, Jason. I'm like, Travis, this thing is not retaining it. I came back maybe 6 months after that, and I come back, and one of the couches is like pushed up against the wall. I'm like, why'd you move the couch? And he goes and he pulls the couch back. He had just got a puppy. The puppy had chewed a hole in the back of it.
Investment gone. Investment's over.
You were a basket case, this one. This was great. The big fella looks so, hey, is this a practice or is it a walkthrough? I'm just trying to figure out what the tempo is. And I'm like,
I was pissed, Fitz.
He's like, we got a 90-play walkthrough. I've never been so gutted in my life. I've never been this tired in a game.
I'm over here dying, and Troy Reeder hits me with a pick stunt, full speed. I'm like, what the is going on out here?
And then I lost on him, too. He almost takes out Goff's knees. We're running a backer pick stunt. I'm like, Staley, what are we doing running pick stunts in a walkthrough? I tell you what, though, I didn't know if I was mad at Andrew. I didn't know if I'm mad at the defense. This is the torment you have as a head coach, Fitz. I'll tell you what, a basket case is an appropriate way to articulate what I am.
In 2018, we go to the Super Bowl and we lose to the Patriots. Obviously, we were all distraught.
You know what? I will say this, though. All in all seriousness, that game, like, why I'm so grateful that we got a chance to go and play in 21. I still, like, that game was too big for me. Like, I didn't see the game live. Like, when I sit up there after the game and, like, there's times when you take accountability, and I think you're better about honestly being able to assess, where is your ownership as a coach for setting players up for success, knowing that, hey, this is a player's game. But that was too big for me. I didn't see in live action. I didn't equip our team with the ability to be able to have a little bit more versatility. We were really dang good, but I didn't have the solves to be able to help provide the solutions for our players when teams were able to stymie some different stuff. And I'll always feel a regret for the players that were on that team that didn't get a chance to share in that experience a few years later. That stings, the John Sullivans, the Brandon Cooks of the world, with Jared and Todd Gurley, there's just so many guys that I still feel, but I do think the further you get away from it, it was more of the memories and the journeys that we had. But that game will forever be something that I feel like I let a lot of people down, and I'm not afraid to admit it was too big for me, and I wasn't ready for that at that moment, and that sucks because it affected a lot of people that you love. I will say this, though, Fitz. What's been really important to me is when I look back on it, the Jared Goff situation could have been handled better on my part, in terms of, the clarity of the dialogue in the midst of that. And You never know which direction this is going to go. But when you sit there and you say, man, I definitely, I had some growing up to do, could have done a better job for Jared. There's a lot more respect and, etiquette that he deserved in the way that was handled on my end. That was poor on my part. And you want to make sure that, as you try to apply your, learning lessons from your mistakes, that you're at least trying to communicate with clarity. And it doesn't mean that they're easy, but like I said earlier, I think people just don't like being caught off guard.
I'm curious about your NFL career, just as a player, looking back at why it didn't turn out the way you thought, and how that allowed you to become the coach that you are today.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Fitzy, because to say that when I went to New England, you've got the greatest head coach of all time, the greatest quarterback of all time, and those are the two leaders of the organization at that point in time and for a very long time there. But the level of football and just the things you learn on a minute-to-minute basis. I tell Coach Belichick this all the time. I still have notebooks because I said to myself, once I realized that I had been thrown into the deep end of the pool, and I would equate that analogy to thrown into the deep end of a shark-infested waters pool of somehow your biggest nightmare as a young player in the league is you don't know enough. And now you're going to a place where you're going to try to replicate and walk the walk and talk the talk of what's going on a minute-to-minute daily basis. I realized very quickly you better write everything down and you better be a sponge because very few people get afforded this kind of opportunity. And although it was intimidating and probably wasn't the most fertile, farming ground for me to become the best quarterback I could become, because I started out in an incredibly intense and kind of intimidating environment. But I couldn't be sitting here today talking to you guys without that being part of my football foundation, because what that forced me to do is go back to my hotel room every night during training camp or off-season program and study and learn why we called defenses this, and learned, why the quarterback had to control the mic point on every run play, why you had to be in total command of protections and not only understand the why behind your job, which coming into the league you thought was, okay, throw it to this guy when he's open, or maybe I'm attacking man coverage and I'm going to work this progression. No, this was, you can't even press go in that offense until the quarterback has completely aligned all 11 guys on the field every single snap. It was intimidating, like I said, but it kind of created the foundation for every job I had from that point forward to this very day. Maybe not the best ideal location to try to have a 10, 15-year career in the NFL. And by the way, I wasn't, in my opinion, I wasn't good enough to do that. Not in the NFL in that day and age for sure. But it probably was the greatest thing that ever happened to me to inevitably lead me to the path I've been on. And I'm very thankful for it.
Is it easier to play quarterback now than it was on first and second down, maybe say 10, 15 years ago?
Well, it's a lot easier to complete a bubble screen or a quick screen than it is a timing out route or a bang eight, right on time. I don't like the trajectory of the NFL's passing game personally.
I agree.
I don't like watching these bubble screens, these RPOs. I collect the vomit bags on airplanes so I can throw up into them when I have to watch this. My idea of beating a blitz is recognizing the blitz, communicating the audible, flashing a hand signal, and seeing a wide out shred that receiver. But a lot of teams' only answer, as you know, is throwing a quick screen. And it is a simplified, muddled down version of what used to be a passing game. But I think you guys would admit the less we put the pads on these linemen, the less we practice, the less we meet, the less we can do. And I think coaches are having to adapt to these situations. And I've been wrong quite a bit. I can't say that a guy I thought was going to be bad was good. But I happen to think a lot of these guys, and I think you can relate to this, and I'm not trying to be egotistical at all, but I fall in love with a lot of these guys. And I'm convinced if I coached them I could help these guys be really good. That's how sick I am. I mean, we led the NFL in offense with Ty Detmer, who was a backup Green Bay didn't want. Nobody wanted Rich Gannon. He comes to the Raiders. He kicks everybody's ass. We won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson, the Bull. And I just think this, if you were there with us in Green Bay when we traded for Brett Favre, nobody really thought Brett Favre was worth a first-round pick. And Mike Holmgren told Mariucci and Andy Reid and myself, we're going to make this guy successful. And when he's successful, we'll have jobs. If he's not successful, we'll be gone anyway. But my point to you guys is, I think a lot of these teams nowadays change offensive coordinators like they change shirts. It's a new system. There's no off season. We don't want to have a preseason anymore. We don't want to have any developmental time for these young guys. You were a hell of a young player at Harvard. You had to keep grinding. You had to keep searching and clawing just to get a shot. And I don't know that you aren't any different than a lot of these young guys that are in the NIL transfer portal, 4 different schools. This is a tough evaluation. And I don't know how many guys really truly relish the daily development of the quarterback like they did years ago.
The number one person in our building that I ask who's a pain in the ass is not a coach, it's not a scout, it's Jeff Mazurk, our head equipment guy. And Jeff's been around for a long time. And usually I'll just saddle up to him at practice one day and I'll say, who's the biggest pain in your ass right now? Let's hear it. And you know, sometimes it's a rookie who's been a big wig at some school we're having to, you know, show them the ropes, but at least kind of gives me an understanding of who I need to kind of saddle up to and just give him a little nudge like, hey, dude, I'm hearing a few things. Let's make sure, you know, you kind of check that, because culture and all that it's so many levels, but how you treat people from the top to the bottom. I mean, look at what Josh Allen giving Slick Rick, our mailman, some love at the thing. Like,
that's epic.
Slick Rick's a Buffalo hero now. I mean, but it's cool for someone like that, you know, just off of what Josh said. But that embodies what we want to be, whether it's Josh Allen or whether you're the 90th player on a roster, treating every single person the right way.
When you talk about those situations, Coach, when you really got these players that are dynamic and it's like, hey, how do I keep this guy in our building? Obviously, some guys got to go. There's going to be feelings hurt. But how do you try to handle these situations when it's guys that you know you want, but sometimes contractually it's just not going to be possible to keep everybody?
It's impossible. It's hard. I remember when I got traded to the Buccaneers, I went into a meeting and Rich McKay said, well, do you want Warwick Dunn or do you want Simeon Rice? And I said, well, the last coach got them both. I'd like to have both of them. He says, well, obviously you don't understand our salary cap. And that really pissed me off. You know, some things are out of the coach's control. I remember when I went back to the Raiders, we had a pretty good player named Khalil Mack who was a free agent. He wouldn't even return my calls.
I think
we offered him $50 million. He ended up getting $100 million from the Bears. But a lot of these things are very emotional, very hard. You want the best players, but there is an economic part of this, and there is a budget that you have to be considerate of because you got to pay a lot of players. Al Davis would sell a percentage of the team just to get some money to get the guy. And I loved every second of it because he was a football guy and he'd do anything he could to win.
He's one of the few owners. He comes to the combine. He sits in all our interviews. He likes to get to know those 45 players that we bring in there for 15 minutes. We watch film with them, and he doesn't say a word. They don't even know he's the owner. Once in a while, if like a guy from Penn State comes in, I'll kind of see if I can put him on the spot. You know who the owner of the Bills is or something like that. And sometimes they'll know it right away, and sometimes they won't. And we'll see if we can embarrass them a little bit.
I've been shredded by Peyton Manning and Ryan Fitzpatrick, and my wife locked me out of the house both nights.
When I was a young coach, and I'm still a young coach, you know, you're so worried about being liked. And oftentimes when you have those difficult conversations, you try to be liked and respected at the same time. And then people are like, well, what the heck did you really just say? And there's no good way to deliver tough information other than with some empathy, but being direct, you know, and open and honest. And I love him. He knows that I love him. I couldn't have more respect for him, even in terms of the way that he handles some of those difficult conversations. And And that's an inevitable part of it. And I do believe that even though this isn't an ideal situation, I think there's going to be a lot of gratitude that I think we both look back on for 8 years that, man, what an incredible blessing he's been. And I've always felt a real appreciation and gratitude from him as well.
I go in his office, and it was like I walked in and he was on YouTube porn or something. I'm like, what's going on? Like, he like jumps. I'm like, what are you watching? And he's like, I'm actually watching back the team meetings. And I'm like, whoa. What? And he's like, I love to just see, is my message resonating? Is what I'm saying making sense? And like, did I articulate what I wanted to articulate? Like, did it come off sincere and honest and like from the heart? And so he would kind of be like, to sit there and think, man, not only are you in the mindset of this is what's important to establish a football team culture, but I'm also going to be the person who's evaluating myself the hardest. And to me, that really stuck out. But the next thing, Fitz, we've all been on these teams. When these things come up, we had a player who was in a franchise situation in his first year. And in the summer, it had kind of gotten like a little sticky with the team. And he had made a comment about lack of communication from the team. And I'm sitting in stretch line getting ready for a conditioning workout. And I just happen to be standing beside him. And Sean walks up and it's like, hey, bro, how you doing? How was your summer? Hey, I just want to clarify some things. You made some comments about lack of communication, and I want to make sure you and I are clear so we can move forward in a path where communication is always a priority. I called you multiple times and you never called back. So however this works out, let's be clear, the communication was there.
Yeah.
And to you, Fitz, how does that hit you? I mean, we've been in those kind of buildings. It's like, whoa,
Sean,
that's
Sean,
awesome.
this is you at age 30?
You want to know something that's even worse, though? So, like, this LA thing's real, whatever. So, I a couple years ago, did you guys ever see, they'll show sometimes the Puka Nacua draft video, where they're showing, all right, hey, me and Les talking, and here's the vision for them, a couple years later. So
I know where you're going.
I didn't take away the Puka Nacua. Obviously we had a vision. We loved him. But all I take away from that video is there's a camera on top of my head and I am balding like a
Can't get
mother.
the bald spot, Fitz.
And I go to my wife, I go, what the hell? I go, has my hair looked like this and you haven't said anything? So now I'm getting PRP shots in the back of my head. It's a little bit more full. That's LA for you.
The LA effect, baby.
I couldn't believe it. I said, I got nobody in my life that's going to tell me the truth. I mean, I'm bold. I might as well just start shaving my head like Big Whit over there with the way that this thing was looking a few years ago.
Melissa Whitworth would always say when she'd see ladies dressed in a way that you're like, that's not it. She'd always say, that girl has no friends. She has no real friends.
Yeah.
You got to have a real friend.
That's
a real
right.
friend tells you, you know what? That's not for you, babe.
No.
Whit, you probably had a great vantage point being as tall as you are.
Yeah,
to
see, he was
that.
low. Most people are looking down on me. I mean, like my feet dangle when I sit on a curb, so I'm not exactly the tallest guy.
You're stupid. I was in Miami during the COVID stuff, and they made us videotape our workouts and send them in. Did you make the guys videotape their workouts?
I'm not getting in trouble with the CBA. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Sean, you would love to see the videos of what Fitz did. So Fitz knew that they would have to go in and look at the videos if somebody got COVID or if there was a report. He knew, they'd have to go look at all those tapes. So my man would put on a jock strap and go stand right in front of where the cameras were and do exercises and stretches just because he knew Goodell.
I'm going to make you feel more awkward than anybody, so you're not going to watch this tape.